Mobile World Congress. Have we reached the pinnacle of smartphones?
And hey presto, will Foxtel's new streaming movie service do the trick?
Welcome to Vertical Hold, the tech show where we channel surf through the headlines in search of the big picture. I'm Alex Kidman, and I'm joined here by a man so hardcore he gleefully chews on food decades past its sell-by date, Adam Turner. Adam, what's happening in the world of tech?
The Australian Law Reform Commission has recommended that we adopt US-style fair use copyright laws to help the law keep up with new technology. Keep in mind, it was illegal to record television in Australia till 2007. Unfortunately, the current Australian government doesn't seem that interested in our copyright rights and is more concerned with cracking down on piracy and filtering the internet.
The University of New South Wales has announced that it's working on a self-driving car. Now, it's hardly alone in this, but its particular aim is kind of interesting. Its idea is that a self-driving car could lead to lower real-time insurance rates because it'd be really clear who was hooning and who wasn't. This is all fine in principle, as long as, say, the machines don't all rise up and crush us into dust. But that's not really likely to happen now, is it?
The federal government has unveiled a national broadband black spot map as part of its revamp of the national broadband network. The black spot map is supposedly going to guide them so they can try and roll out the NBN to people who need it most. Unfortunately, the black spot map doesn't account for the condition of the copper, so your mileage may vary.
Apple's patched over a very serious flaw in its iOS and macOS operating systems that could have allowed rogue elements to impersonate theoretically secure sites, hoovering up your personal details and bank accounts at will. The patch for iOS actually appeared last week, and the macOS patch was this week. So if you haven't actually updated your Apple gear, do so right now.
So Alex, over in Barcelona they've just wrapped up Mobile World Congress, the big industry shindig where we see the exciting mobile phones for the next year, except you don't think they're all that exciting.
Yeah, that's right. See, the thing is, this year hasn't exactly been all about the big shiny hero phones. It's been significantly more about mid-range and especially entry-level smartphones, to the point where they might not actually be all that smart. Now, there are a couple of hero models out there. Samsung took the opportunity to show off the Galaxy S5, and Sony showed off the Xperia Z2, both as a phone and as a tablet. What are your thoughts around those?
Well, I had a bit of a look at the specs on the X5 and I was kind of impressed because the S4 seemed to have a lot of gimmicks and stuff like that, and then they came out with a few other models. With the S5, straight away they've gone with the waterproof and the dustproof from the active version of the S4. They've gone for this extended battery life mode that basically just lets you drop down to being voice and text, and 10% of battery will get you through 24 hours. Now, whether or not you're a gadgety person, you're going to see the value in that. That doesn't matter whether you're a business user or a home user. So those things really caught my attention.
See, I mean, I'm keen to get some hands-on time, and I'm kind of interested to see where they've gone with that. Having said that, again, it's in some ways it's like, here's the stuff that we put in the advanced models we released later last year, rather than here's the genuinely new stuff. And the battery mode, Sony's had a similar kind of thing on their Xperias for a while, and to be honest with you, having used it, it really annoys me. Because the battery lasts a bit longer, you can maybe make a phone call or a text, but the problem is, you're still going to want that email, you're still going to want all this other stuff to come in, and as soon as you actually do switch it on, or as soon as you've actually got power, it's all going to come flooding and hit you like a tidal wave, which to me, and this is a very personal thing, it irritates me. I mean, there's some interesting stuff in the S5 though, the fingerprint sensor linked to PayPal, which is both a massive opportunity and obviously a bit scary on the security side, and then the heartbeat sensor on the back, which is kind of, well, it's interesting, but again, it could be a bit gimmicky the way all the nature gimmicks around the S4 were. The thing is, those aside, the vast crop of what you saw out of MWC was mid-range, and especially phones for what they call the emerging market, which fundamentally isn't us. And what that means is that they're phones based on last year's tech, largely, because it's now quite cheap and affordable, and therefore you can market it to those emerging markets where things like dual SIM are more important, where potentially spending $1,000 on a smartphone just is something that's never going to happen. So you get things like the big range of Firefox phones and even some tablets that they announced. Now those are kind of interesting things. I've played around with last year's Firefox phone, and for anyone who hasn't actually seen it, this is the creature in question. It's the ZTE Open. They've announced the Open 2 at MWC.
Yeah.
It's bright, it's orange, it's very, very, very slow.
Is that the $25 phone?
This is not the $25 phone, but one of the phones that they announced at MWC will be a $25 phone.
So it'll probably be even more painful and slow than that one.
Well, actually, I suspect it's going to be very similar, but it's painful and slow, and I've got to qualify this. It is painful and slow to my tastes, and I have somewhat spoilt tastes.
Yes.
I play with Galaxy S4s and iPhones and Lumia 1020s, and you jump from that down to an absolute entry-level model, and you're sitting there thinking, why is this so slow?
So we really need a hashtag first world problem under this conversation.
Absolutely. Oh,
yeah.
God, yes. Yeah, absolutely. This is a conversation of privilege.
Yeah.
But this is where all these manufacturers are going. And I mean, one of the other manufacturers who made a big splash into this kind of entry-level space, not that they haven't been there already with their own Asha phones, was Nokia, because they're going Android.
Ooh. That's going to upset some people.
Yeah, this wasn't an entirely unknown thing. It was known that they'd kind of been looking at it.
Don't tell Sheeds. We'll never hear the end of it.
I have this quiet feeling he's a little bit upset already. But that in-joke aside, the interesting thing there is, of course, that Microsoft's buying Nokia.
Yeah.
They have known that they're doing this, and someone's ticked off on it. But these are still very much entry-level phones, and I mean, they are still a Microsoft play. They tie into Microsoft services, and they do what Amazon did, in fact, with its Kindle Fire tablets. Those run Android, same as the Nokia X ones, the Nokia X phones will do. And the trick there, though, is you wouldn't really know it. You wouldn't really know it because they're massively reskinned. Now, again, I'm not in Barcelona. I haven't had a chance to get hands-on with a Nokia X, but it wouldn't surprise me if it was very difficult for the average layperson to actually even realise, hey, this is an Android phone. They just think, oh, it's a Nokia.
Yeah.
There's been a bit of conflicting information at this stage as to exactly how Android they're going to be. Certainly there's no inbuilt Google Play, for example, but there was this vague suggestion that if you were keen, you might be able to sideload an app or something like that.
Oh, I've seen hideous Android devices like that don't let you use the proper app store or do all these other things, and they're like kid-friendly ones that, you know, cripple a lot of the Android features and services, and at the end of the day they usually tend to be more trouble than they're worth. So I would be very reluctant to jump into a phone like that without getting a good hands-on first.
Absolutely, and I mean, again, though, we're speaking from a kind of elevated first world position on that, obviously. The other big thing to come out of Mobile World Congress were lots and lots of fitness and tracking gadgets, and you're a man who's obsessive about his fitness.
No, I refuse to write about these things. I don't want to have anything to do with it.
You refuse to write about these things?
I don't trust a skinny tech reviewer. It means you're not doing the hard yards on the couch.
I'll be leaving then. But okay, this is something though that whether or not you don't trust them, this is something that's definitely going to be a big emerging thing in 2014. You've got Huawei coming out with what will presumably be a fairly budget version. You've got Sony with their band that tracks not only, you know, the steps you've taken but the photos you've taken, and you've got Samsung going seemingly even further all in with the two new Galaxy Gear smartwatches, albeit not running Android.
LG had one at CES as well, a Life band, or maybe every man and his dog's got one of these things.
Everybody's got one, and I think this, in a sense, whilst the phones coming out of MWC might not be that thrilling, I think this is why they've reached this kind of point where, okay, yeah, look, they're incrementally going to get better. You're going to see better processors, better screen technology. We'll start seeing more curved things like LG's G Flex, although I'm not entirely sold on that thing. But you've reached this kind of point where, okay, the premium is at a level, and it's at a pretty good level, and they know they can sell to that market. They're targeting all these millions, billions of people that don't have a smartphone but could benefit from one, and that's actually quite laudable, and obviously it's somewhere they can make money. What they can do for that first world market is accessorize. Foxtel's finally gotten around to announcing the launch date for its movie streaming service over IP called Presto. Now, Adam, you've been thinking about this one and looking forward to this one for a while, haven't you?
Well, yeah, they've had Foxtel Play for a while that you can subscribe to different channels, like a subset of the full Foxtel channels, and you can get TV One, but it's not TV One anymore, and a few other channels. Now they've got Presto, and what that basically is a movie service. So it's not TV shows, it's just movies, and it draws on the movie channels that you'll currently get on a Foxtel service. So that's premiere movies, comedy, action, whatever the different ones are. Premiere is probably the most interesting one though, because you've got a big back catalogue there, perhaps bigger than what you might get from somewhere like QuickFlix. But the premiere movies are usually about 8 or 9 months old. You won't get new release movies if it's something that's just come out and it's costing you $6 on iTunes. It's probably costing you $6 from Presto as well. But after a couple of months, once it's screening on the Foxtel Premiere channel, then you'll get that movie from Foxtel as part of your subscription, whereas if you went somewhere else, you might still be expected to rent it. So that alone could make the difference. If you've looked at subscription services like QuickFlix and Netflix and gone, but every movie I want to watch isn't there because, you know, they're all they've got's 10 years old movies, then you might look at this and go, for $20 a month, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean, the Netflix comparison's a really interesting one because Netflix is always held up as, if only we had Netflix, they're not worth it, just get a VPN and go for Netflix. Yeah. And certainly a proportion of the Australian audience does so. I think, again, we've discussed it before, it's probably a little overblown, but it's definitely a thing that people do. But the issue with Netflix is that apart from that every once in a while big movie they pick up, their archive is much older, and it is still very movie-centric, although they do carry some TV.
I actually think it's the TV is what makes Netflix worth it. A lot of people seem to think that Netflix is just open slather for anything you'd ever want to watch. They haven't spent enough time with it to know what it can and can't do. I don't think it's worth paying for Netflix for movies. Every time I'm paying for Netflix, I spend 15 minutes going through the list of movies and can't find everything I want. I actually think it's the TV shows that is more likely you'll find, your back catalogue for Archer or Star Trek or something like that, where they've got 7 or 8 series of something that you want to catch up on. It's like, there's my $7 a month right there. So if you're into TV shows, I think Netflix has got a lot of value. If you're after movies, you might be disappointed with Netflix. And like I said, this Foxtel Presto service might actually be what you're looking for.
Yeah, the value thing's an interesting one as well, because alongside all of this, they also announced that they're dropping the price for a 3-month span on the Showtime package, which for most intents and purposes is basically their HBO deal.
Yeah.
And they're doing it, and this is no particular coincidence, exactly around when they're going to show the next series of Game of Thrones.
Now, Game of Thrones, Foxtel! Sorry, had to be done.
Yeah, no, it's totally obligatory. It's totally obligatory. And I mean, to give the context, although I'm sure a lot of people are aware of this, last year you could get Foxtel still had Game of Thrones as a broadcast exclusive, but you could get it through iTunes and I think eventually through QuickFlix. Yeah. The day afterwards as a pay to own thing for $3 an episode, basically.
Yeah.
Foxtel stepped in and said, well, actually our HBO deal is a bit more exclusive than that, and that won't happen from season 4, and it's not happening. The only legitimate way to get it for this season will be through Foxtel. But as a bit of a sop to those who kind of said, well, I don't want to spend $100 just to get $100 a month just to get Game of Thrones.
It's good, but it's not quite that good.
Yeah, they've actually said, okay, we're dropping the price of the Showtime add-on to $10 a month. Now, you can't just get Showtime. You can't give them $10 a month. Just get Showtime, watch your fill of Game of Thrones and maybe some True Blood or whatever else appeals to you. You've got to get it with another package. The cheapest way this comes in is $35 a month for Foxtel Play. And as long as you've got an IP, broadband that's good enough, that gives you enough speed to actually watch this stuff, then that would be the cheapest legal way to do it. Do you reckon that's enough?
Well, when you crunch the numbers, that comes out at about $7 or $8 an episode for Game of Thrones, which is more than you're paying somewhere else. But you've only then got to watch one other show. Along with Game of Thrones, this new HBO deal, they're going to have the new episodes of Mad Men and a couple of other things. You've only got to find 2 shows that you want to watch on Foxtel Play. And now you're getting down to around that Foxtel Play. And now you're getting down to that $3-4 mark per episode that you might have been paying for iTunes before. So for some people it will make sense, and then once they put the price back up to $50, if by then you've got sucked into watching a few shows. But I think a lot of people just on principle won't pay it. There will be a lot of people who were prepared to pay iTunes and prepared to pay Quick Flicks because they wanted to do the right thing, but will not turn around now and will go straight back to BitTorrent and steal it on principle. And I know that sounds like an odd thing to do, steal on principle, but they will steal it on principle rather than give their money to Foxtel.
I absolutely agree. And I mean, I think that it's a really, I find it an interesting move from Foxtel because to an extent it's not something that they absolutely had to do. And I do wonder how many customers they'll get. At the same time, and it comes down to this horrible kind of value thing, there's a proportion of people who are going to nick it anyway. They're going to steal it anyway. They would argue blind that $3 an episode is way too much to pay, or $7 an episode is way too much to pay. And I mean, the reality check there is, look, sorry, something on that scale, with that big a cast, with that big an effects budget, let alone whatever it is they've got to pay George R.R. Martin, costs serious money.
Yeah, it's not budget television. It's not cheapo television by any stretch.
Yeah. We now pause this to remind you that you're watching Vertical Hold completely free. But that having been said, it'll be really fascinating to see whether or not it makes any change, especially in the piracy figures. Game of Thrones remained the most pirated thing on the internet, and Australia was way punching above our weight in terms of population, in terms of the number of people who were pirating.
I'm happy to bet right now that season 1 of episode 4 breaks records, including Australia. And that some people who maybe have never even downloaded a show in their life will go down and download this one just to be part of something. I can assure you that Foxtel's deal's not going to turn things around.
I am so not taking that bet.
No.
You've got to find another sucker, I'm afraid,
Well played.
And that wraps up this episode of Vertical Hold. I'm Alex Kidman.
And I'm Adam Turner, off to restock on mustard, and we'll see you in a fortnight.